So welcome everyone. Hopefully everybody can hear me. This is the first meeting for the Scituate Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And in response to Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated on March 12, 2020, the Town of Scituate public meeting shall meet remotely until further notice. This meeting is being recorded, and you can view the recording tomorrow on Channel 9 and the YouTube Scituate Community Television. We're not streaming live on Facebook right now. We can talk about that as a committee moving forward if we think that's the best option for our future meetings, but tonight we will not be streaming live on Facebook. So the first order of business is for me to call the meeting to order. So I will make a motion to call the meeting to order, and I just need someone to second it. And you can second it by raising your hand or saying aye. And then I will call for acceptance for the agenda, and everyone will hopefully affirm it and see if there's any modifications, and we'll move forward. So I'd like to make a motion to call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Ruth, and a second?
Aye.
Thank you, Kim.
Lots of cooperators.
Yeah, we'll get better at it, don't worry. And I'm going to take very cryptic notes because, as you see, this is our first meeting, so we need to organize ourselves quite a bit as we go through. And eventually, hopefully, one of you will come forward and be our acting secretary, who will really take good notes so we can generate some good minutes moving forward. So the first thing I want to do is say welcome to all of you. So excited to have every one of you here. You'll all have an opportunity to introduce yourselves and go through sort of your vision and the roles and what you feel you can bring to the table. I can just share with all of you that the Board of Selectmen was so impressed by all of the passion and all of the experience that each and every one of you brought forth during the interview process. And there were a ton of great applicants. So we look forward to hopefully creating some legs to our committee, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of work that we want to do over the next year or so to really evaluate this charge. So I thought what I would do is just review the charge and what the board's view is, and then we'll go through and do member introductions. I am going to wait until Nikki is going to be a few minutes late, so once she gets in, we'll start that piece. So really our vision, I think we all know pretty clear, why we formed this committee in response to the state of our nation, and want to make sure that we are being as diverse and inclusive as possible here in Scituate. And we want to take a look at our policies and our procedures, our budgets. And that's why we felt it was also important to have Bob Clark on the committee, because he is our HR director, and really take a look at all those different aspects of town government and determine, what are we doing well? Where can we improve? What have each and one of you all learned in your particular roles, your professional roles, and what can you bring to the table as well to help us as a town and as a government with ideas on to ensure that we are being inclusive in our policies, to ensure how do we expand and become a more diverse representation of our community in places if we find that is needed, and really talk through and develop a plan of action to go back to the Board of Selectmen with some recommendations. So that ultimately is what we're looking at. You have it is a 2-year term, but we want to try to hit a goal of after 12 months to come forth with some recommendations to the board to consider. Within the charge, we are looking to report to the Board of Selectmen on a quarterly basis as to some of our findings and our progress. And as we work through that, that'll help us kind of determine if there are any additional resources that we may need to conduct what we think is, or what you think really is needed in order to move this along and make any improvements in town. And I'm excited because I think it sets the tone for Scituate. As leaders, if we as a government body can set the tone that, being diverse and equitable and inclusive in all angles I think, we can hopefully correct some of the tone that some folks feel has been out there and make sure that we continue to be a great community, because I think Scituate is an incredibly caring community. And I want to make sure that that also resonates as we move forward. So any comments from the committee with that before I move on to introductions? No? Okay. I am going to just, so no introductions will take a while, so I'm going to reduce that so I can see everybody. It's the first time that I've actually had to share some documents and also be able to see all of you at the same time. So I don't see Nikki yet, but I'm going to start and go around. And why don't I start with our town folks that have raised their hand to come forward, although some of them didn't have a choice, as I always apologize to Bob that I inserted him into the committee, but he's very willing. Bob, why don't we start with you? If you could sort of share with us your role when you got here, things that you're working on, and how you feel, whatever you want to share with the committee where you feel you can assist us to achieve our goals.
Sure, absolutely. Again, my name is Bob Clark. I'm the Human Resources Director for the town of Scituate. And so I've been in this position for going on about 3 years now. So in February, will be 3 years. I'm a Scituate resident, and I had worked for many years for the city of Boston. And the last position I left, I was the Associate Director of the City of Boston's Homeless Services. And so we operated the largest homeless service shelter in the city. And I worked there for 28 years. I left as the Associate Director, but I also, a big part of my role, probably about half of my work was as the Human Resources Director and also as the Labor Relations sort of contact person. So, it was interesting work in part because as it relates to this is that it was an incredibly diverse workforce. It was obviously an incredibly diverse population that we served. And, but I think most importantly, the Boston Public Health Commission is probably one of the most progressive organizations out there when it comes to looking at issues around racial equity and things like that. Their focus, again, as Public Health Commission, was really looking at there's some of the health disparities that exist across the city in Boston, particularly on issues like low birth weight and obesity and chlamydia and, among people of color. So it was an organization that really focused on issues regarding racial equity, and they really taught us, I think, to look at all the work that we were doing with that lens, and it was interesting to kind of work in that type of work environment. So I think that some of those experiences will be helpful as we do this work. When I came here, I was I think that the town has only had an HR department for a couple of years. So I think we're a little bit behind the 8 ball, to be honest with you, in terms of policy development, particularly in these areas. So it's something I've been working on. It's been a little overwhelming. So I really welcome, honestly, this work in the committee, because I think it'll be helpful to have some sort of guidance, and particularly from town residents and others to, what really makes the most sense for the town as we look to develop this and what are the things that we need to focus on. So I'm definitely looking forward to what I can sort of, get from this process, because I feel like there's a fair amount of work that we still have to do.
Thank you, Bob. And I think you raise a really interesting point that I think a lot of folks don't realize is that, Scituate hasn't had a human resource director for a very long time. And that may be shocking to many of you who work in the private sector, because every corporation has a human resource director. So it really wasn't until, it was, I want to say, maybe 2014, 2015, that the former town administrator, really saw the need to bring on a human resource director, and specifically for that very reason, right? Was associate handbook, employee policies and procedures, which just hadn't been documented. So, Scituate, we've added a lot of positions over the last, I want to say 6 to 8 years. You know, I've been working in town government for 20 years in a matter of different roles. And I was always shocked. You know, we didn't have an IT director. We didn't have a human resource director. I mean, just simple, basic things. We didn't have a facilities director. So we're getting there. And we've added a lot of great resources, and Bob is certainly one of them. So I think that will bring some light, I think, hopefully, to the whole committee when you start sort of looking at what we have in place or what we may not have in place, because Bob's had a lot of work to do. And I'm sure he welcomes your help. So any questions for Bob from the committee? No? Okay, I see heads shaking now. And okay, so maybe we'll go up. I have my little Brady Bunch screen here. So Lucia, you're in my top left. Did you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. I wish we were in person. I am the office manager at the DPW office here in Town Hall. I've worked in real estate for probably around 15 years, and I've been working here for approximately 2.5 years. And what brought me over was leaving Boston, having 4 kids, wanting to not put my kids in a private school. So, I came this way. I applied to a couple of jobs, and this happened to be one of the jobs that I was offered. Real estate, and also there was a private school that I brought my kids into, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why I decided to join this group. And bear with me, because this whole thing is new to me, and I'm having a hard time hearing on this computer. So bear with me as I try to explain myself. We
can hear you fine. We can hear you fine.
Okay, yep. I'm having a hard time hearing you guys, which I'm trying to get a little closer. I'll make it work next time. But in terms of Town Hall, I've had such a wonderful experience here. Wonderful experience. However, my first experience with Scituate was in a school system, and it happened to be very negative. And so very disheartening. But anyhow, that's one day I'll share this story. But when I did read this new committee opening up, it almost spoke to me. I felt like I had no way out. I felt like I needed to be a part of this discussion, whatever that looks like in the future. So that would be why I decided to do this. And as I mentioned before, I do have 4 children, so my life is very busy, but I also want to lend my voice in the best way possible in terms of education, empathy, all of that. I don't know if I'm going too deeply into anything, but so it's 2 years in Town Hall, so I don't know the history of Scituate. I haven't been here long enough. I'm not a resident. I grew up in Boston. So I grew up around everyone, every culture, every race, everything you can possibly imagine. So for me, the experience that I had initially in a school system really was so disheartening, because everything else has been so overwhelmingly positive. I think that would be the first part of it. I'm interested, obviously, in helping out in any capacity that I can.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions for Lucia, guys?
Lucia, are you Cape Verdean by chance?
I am absolutely Cape Verdean. Are you?
Yes.
Como está?
Está bom. Obrigado.
Speak it. Yay.
Yes. I was born there. I have to speak it. My mother.
I was born there too. I came when I was 3 years old, and I speak it. So awesome.
Good. Yeah, I came when I was 4.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
That's awesome. That's great. Okay. Any other questions for Lucia? No? Right. Lucia, I'm curious, was that a private or public school in Scituate?
If I say it, you'll know exactly what it is. So I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. No pressure. I was just curious. And not an issue.
Not public. I've said it. It wasn't-
Okay. The other thing I want to bring up is there is a diversity committee, as we all know, on the school side. So really what we're going to focus on is really the town side of government, public safety, et cetera. But that doesn't mean that we won't share findings with the school committee. I think it might make sense as we move along that we maybe have a liaison or some sort of connection with that committee over on the school side so that we're aligned and all marching in the same direction. So I think that's something that we can work out as we move forward as a committee. Lieutenant Amanda O'Shea, how about you next, and then we'll go to the rest of the group. You're muted. There you go.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Can. Welcome.
So I feel like, Lucia, I'm the same. Technology is not my strong suit. So I figured out how to hook up some speakers because I also couldn't hear everybody. So hopefully this will work. So my name is Mandy O'Shea. I've been a lieutenant for about 6 months here in Scituate. I've been employed by the Scituate Police for the last 17 years. I'm started out in the Bronx in New York. So we moved to Scituate in elementary school. So I've been in the Scituate, I've gone through the Scituate public schools. I've been a town worker, like I said, for 17 years. I now have 2 children in the Scituate public schools. So I feel like I'm kind of bringing, all sorts of perspective to the table. When the chief had brought this to our command staff, that this committee was going to be made, was really excited about it. I think just in the police department, we have like another perspective, right? Because we're civil service. So it's good to hear the hiring process throughout the whole town. And I know, adding Bob to the mix was night and day for us. Having just everything rooted through one person in one department is huge. So I'm excited to be here and to listen to and add anything that I can.
Thank you, Mandy. And it's just for clarification for everyone, Mandy, Bob, and Lucia all opted to be non-voting members and to be here as resources for all of us, as well as to participate in the discussion and help in any way to move forward. So I just wanted to make that clear as well, that was their choice. We during the interview process, we went through that, and I think it's a great choice too. Any questions for Mandy?
And ladies, my maiden name is Miranda, so I feel like I'm a part of this group.
Very good. But you found a nice Irishman, right?
It happened. My dad is still confused by it, but this is where I am.
Same problem, or not problem, but same, right? So at any rate, all good. All right, so maybe we'll just start at the top 2. Angela, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Angela Ribeiro Dre. Obviously, the Ribeiro is my maiden name. I also married a nice Irish man, Amanda. So, but every now and then I bring in the Ribeiro. So I grew up in Scituate. I moved here directly from Cape Verde at the age of 4, went through Scituate Public Schools. After high school, I did run away because everyone wants to run away from Scituate when you're a teenager. I moved back with my daughter. My husband and I got married. I convinced him to move to Scituate. So I have 2 children that went through Scituate Public Schools. My daughter actually moved back with her kids. So we are 4th, 5th generation living in Scituate. I love the town. When this committee was being formed, I was excited to participate. It's a little bit outside my normal comfort zone. I tend to be more of a quiet, reserved, private person, but I thought it was important to get involved. And as far as the Cape Verdean community in Scituate, I think we tend to be more quiet and not, putting our, getting as involved, especially with politics and things like that in the town. So I think my voice could be a positive voice to be heard on the committee. I like what you said about setting the tone, and one of the goals for this committee. I think that's important. I think the town is trying to do that. The school committee doing that with hiring the DEI director and again, forming this committee. I think there's a lot of wonderful people in town that, want to see positive change in the town to be more inclusive and welcoming. Unfortunately, there are some voices that seem very opposed to change. And that's a little disheartening, just sitting in through the school committee meetings and hearing some things that, I think I want to focus on the good, and I want to help this committee and make this town, a wonderful place for everyone.
Oh, well said, especially after the events that unfolded last week as well, on top of everything else that we've gone through. I think I want to make sure too, that I just clarify something. I know on our agenda this week, there wasn't a space for a public comment, and that's something that we will add moving forward to our future meetings. But I thought it was important that, we as a committee kind of just go through, get to know one another, lay out the next steps. And then in those future meetings, we should probably offer some opportunity for a public comment, but that won't happen tonight. So I wanted to clarify that as well, just so folks understand. So Natasha, so thank you, Angela. Happy to have you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natasha Stewart. I am the priest in charge of St. Luke's Episcopal Church, the one right across the street from the town hall. I have been there for about 2 years now, and I've been ordained for 15 years, so this is not my first rodeo. A perk of the church is that they have a house here in town, so I am now a Scituate resident. And I have 2 children in the school district, one in 7th grade, Gates, and my son is actually placed out of district. He has special needs, but he's 7. So I feel like I'm sort of a little bit the sacrificial lamb here from the clergy group. We heard that you wanted a clergy representative, so they pushed me forward. But I have
happy you stepped forward.
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience working with different diverse community groups. I grew up all over the country because my parents work, and I've lived in all kinds of different communities that are very diverse and that are very much like Scituate. So from inner city St. Louis to the rural parts of North Carolina and Connecticut. So a little bit of everything in there. And so I just feel like this is a really important topic right now for our country as well as for our town. And I'm just looking forward to being able to see how we can move forward in a better way to make sure we stay peaceful as a country and as a town particularly. And I'm just excited to kind of see what we come up with and getting to know everyone.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Natasha? No? Okay. Tom, did you want to unmute yourself, or I can unmute? There you go.
Sure. Thanks.
Welcome.
Tom Secor, thank you. I'm not Cape Verdean.
You fooled us.
Yeah, exactly. I've been in Scituate for going on 11 years. 3 kids that have all gone through, well, 2 are, one at Gates, one at the high school, and one is a freshman in college. So, been here 11 years, fully aware of its lack of diversity. I work for a small company in a very large industry, and I've kind of pushed the company, especially given recent events globally, to take on more corporate and social responsibility. We've launched DEI forums, a number of different things, but the more and more I think about it, I think starting at the grassroots level, at the town level, is where I want to be a part, right? So, I'm very excited to, sitting through the interview process, it was daunting. You guys had a really tough decision to make. There were some fantastic applicants and speeches. I mean, I was enthralled for the 2.5 hours that I was sitting in this room talking, and I was pleasantly surprised to get picked, to be honest with you. And I feel very fortunate to have an opportunity to work with this team, and it's going to be a journey. But one thing you said at the outset, Maura, was checkpoints quarterly and taking a pause after 12 months and seeing where we are and so forth. But one of the things I want to make sure of is that we have strategic goals and we also have tactical goals. I want to make sure that, there has to be some low-hanging fruit that we can push across, whether it's maybe helping Bob with a policy, what have you. But I'm a consultant by trade. I run projects. I do work with technology. So I know where the mute button is. So again, I'm just excited and blessed to be able to work with you guys.
Well, thank you. I didn't mean to insult you by not knowing where the mute button was, so sorry about that.
I have a lot of bad jokes. So.
I agree with you about strategic and tactical, and eventually what you'll see is I'm going to take a step back right after we kind of determine who wants to assume the role as chair, who wants to assume the role as secretary or vice, and also a vice chair. I think is probably makes sense because sometimes folks may not be able to attend, right? So then that's the second meeting that we have will be at that point in time when we kind of try to outline those strategic and tactical goals that we want to achieve. And I think, Bob certainly will probably have some input as he has insight into where we may have holes, right off, and what that low-hanging fruit may be to attack first, to your point, Tom. So maybe in the first quarter, that's what it is, right? What are these quick things that we can hit? And then what are we looking for, down the road? Well said. So thank you, Tom, for that. And, there's a reason why this group is diverse too, because you all brought different strengths that I think are important to be successful and to also make progress, right? And not just sit around a room every 2 weeks and talk about it. We want to make some real true progress. So that's why you do see a very diverse group here. Any questions for Tom? No? Okay. Celia?
Sure. Thank you, Maura.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Celia. I've been a Scituate resident for 5 years now. Like many of you, I'm also from Boston and went to Boston Public Schools. My family emigrated here in the 70s and 80s. So I'm Middle Eastern and I speak Arabic. And I think what, prompted me to do this work is not just my day job, because equity has been incorporated into the work that I do. I work for the Boston Chamber of Commerce. But because when my siblings or my best friends visit, and all my best friends happen to be first generation, right? Go figure. They don't see themselves here. I try to constantly recruit them to Scituate to be closer to me. And it started off as a joke, but I think it's no longer a joke because I started the more time I spent here just realizing that my son is not going to grow up like me with the experiences I had. And that's, I think, worrisome to me. I'll spare you my career, but I think what I'm most looking forward to is potentially the systems change that we can impact and the actions. I too want to see things outlive this committee and us. And I think changing town policies and ingraining that is critical because I think a lot of racism and other forms of discrimination are just ingrained and a lot of it's unconscious and it's just systemic. And so any sort of policies or things that we can change, like systems that will outlive the people, I think is I'm just really looking forward to having hopefully our stamp put on that.
Thank you. I go through training and at the end I'll go through, I'll give you an overview of my history here in Scituate as well. So I realize I failed to do that. But I've gone through several times training at Staples. I work at Staples, unconscious bias, which is really helpful. And, it's one of the things that I want to hear from Bob and give him as one of his to-dos as, when we leave tonight is to kind of understand what type of training and exposure has our staff had to that, those types of training modules that are out there. And I think there are some other folks that will introduce themselves that also have some ideas and some resources that we can tap into to help further our education and training as well.
And I will just add, my name doesn't reflect it, but I also married an Irishman who recruited me to Scituate. So I'll join that club.
I think it's a popular club. My Irishman wasn't from Scituate, but he was from a neighboring town, so brought me to the South Shore. So Kim, you're next. How are you this evening?
I'm good. Thank you, Maura. And hi, everybody. I really feel honored, as Tom said, to have been selected for this group. It's really nice to get to know your stories. I'm a social worker. I've lived in Scituate for about 30 years, but I grew up in Brockton, so I have more urban and diverse roots. I am a member of the faculty at the Graduate School of Social Work at Simmons University. For one more semester. I'm leaving at the end of the semester to downshift, as I'm calling it. And I have a private practice in Hingham. I learned through the pandemic that I can't return to a 5-day-a-week commute to the Longwood medical area. It's just a little too much. But I've been at Simmons in some capacity for about 15 years, and I think that it has been such an education for me. In addition to what I'm supposed to be teaching, I'm sure I've learned much more working with young people and a very diverse group of students. And I have a large department that I oversee, and we have made the commitment over the past several years to doing this work around race and equity and inclusion, but our biggest focus is race. And I've learned so much from colleagues and students, and I've learned that in addition to continuing to learn, I have to, as a white person, be the one who is also I don't want to say ally. I want to be an ally, but I know we're all called to take it to the next step now, not just be an ally, but an activist. And so social justice is really what's most on my mind. And I am admittedly glued to the news these days and terribly distressed by it, and feel like the horrific events we witnessed last Wednesday really boil down to race. I think we're about 400 years late to this work as a nation, and it's just heartbreaking. I think that was such a manifestation of what courses through the veins of this country, and so I'm grateful to be some small part of this conversation, and happy to bring whatever resources I might be able to bring from our school community, because there's certainly people there who do this work and teach about race and racism and equity and inclusion. Another role that I fill is mother. I have 2 children in their 20s, both products of the Scituate Public Schools. My oldest child, my son, who's 24, is on the autism spectrum. And so I've also raised somebody who has been marginalized since day one, and have really struggled with that. And so that's certainly another area of equity and inclusion that is near and dear to my heart. Gender is another one. It's something that is part of my conversation every day at my work with students. And I know that's another piece that we talked about during some part of this process, I think, in the interviews. So I'm sort of rambling on, and I'll stop rambling and just say thank you. And I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you. You're not rambling, really. The more we learn about one another, and the more productive I think we'll all be, and not rambling at all, Kim.
Oh,
but thank you. Any questions for Kim? You guys are quiet. Okay. Ruth, I'll go to you next. There you go.
My name is Ruth Yacine. I often told my students, to remember my last name. It's like, have Yacine her lately, because otherwise the name gets all different kinds of ways. I've just retired from the Scituate Public Schools after 15 years. I taught middle school, 7th grade English there. I've lived in Scituate 29 years. my 4 children have all gone through the Scituate public schools and now are way out. So, I mean, like my baby's 31. I know in Scituate terms, 29 is just like having gotten here. But I feel like I have a kind of a good feeling for what's happened over the last 30 years in the schools, because we seemed to be there forever, it seemed like. And then once my kids were going out, I went in. I'm very committed to this work. Our family is Muslim, and there's been some hairy years here. We are absolutely appalled at what has been happening. But the fact that now we have homegrown terrorists rather than just Muslim terrorists is good to see. The focus is not all that way at the moment. I'm the Irish side of my family, which is kind of funny. But my husband's originally from Bangladesh, and my daughters-in-law are from a variety of countries. So we're kind of like an international club once everybody comes together. And I think that gives me also a different perspective, because it's important to be able to navigate a wide range of perspectives. And in Scituate, again, as Celia mentioned, to only see kind of a small slice of our world, I think leads people to not understand what the real world is really about. And I think we have a lot to do in Scituate, and I'm very excited on what we can do. I think we have a lot of prioritizing. I don't know how we can take such big bites and break it down. And I think that's going to be our major challenge as we get going, because I really think there's a lot of different levels on which we can work.
Mm-hmm. Ruth, did any of your sons move here? Are they raising their families in Scituate? No.
No. They visit a lot. We've actually added on to our house rather than making it smaller, so that the whole clans can all come together. I think the closest I have is one son is in South Boston. He won't stay there. We'll really buy a house. I don't know. I don't think they'll come. And I think it's a lot because one is nearness to work parts. Again, most don't live and work in this area, but the other is they are concerned about their children and having people that will look like their children. They're in a variety of school systems, and to have other Muslim kids, people who understand what the holidays are without it being weird. When you're fasting, that it's not a problem, that's kind of normal, rather than what a strange person you are for a holiday that requires you as a teen not to eat during the days. That made them really different. I think that they valued their time here very much, but I don't think that's what they're going to choose for their kids. So I'd like to see if we can change some of that.
Agreed. That's too bad. Yeah, but I agree with you about the change. Any questions for Ruth? No? And Nikki, I see you were able to join. It's great. You're up.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I was late picking up my son.
No worries.
So my full name is Awanika Damali Sanders. And it's because my parents were part of the Back to Africa movement, and they had these massive afros and a book of African names. My dad, who's passed, was from Alabama, and my mother was from North Carolina, is from North Carolina. So I got stuck with that. So I go by Nikki, which I think is a lot easier for everyone. I guess I guess my professional career after college started as a high school history teacher in Boston. I taught at the Jeremiah Burke Latin Academy and Madison Park High School, a vocational high school. And then I went to law school at Boston College Law. And then I went to a big firm in Slevin. And then I started my own firm and wind things down after spending about 11 or 12 years on Beacon Hill. So a lot of my friends are from Beacon Hill. I now am a consultant, so all the people I met, I now connect to people I've known throughout my life with money or projects or whatever they're looking for as a consultant. And my primary job is to fetch mustard and ketchup for my 4-year-old and my 11-year-old. Ty got into the ECC but didn't go this year. At Wampatuck, where Christopher graduated from, and he's 11 and he goes to Gates. Since just before George Floyd, I started getting involved in kind of grassroots organizing here in Scituate, but I'm a Dukakis Democrat, and I have been involved in politics and organizing grassroots efforts for a very long time. I've done work with getting gay marriage passed in Massachusetts. There's an organization, Know Thy Neighbor. I was their lawyer. I've done work in LA and South Central after the Rodney King riots. And now, and so on and so on. And now I, in Scituate, have participated in starting Scituate Pride, which is a very large organization, and also Scituate United, which is a collaboration of organizations, and participating in and organizing race talks and straight talks to kind of get knowledge into the community about some of our community members who may not be Irish. I happen to be married to an Irish woman who is an avid fisher person and grew up in Onset and Wareham. Her dad's in Marion. So she spent her whole life on boats and on beaches, and so Scituate just made sense. Wampatuck was the school we wanted. The house that we bought here, which we recently sold, so we're looking, was because of Wampatuck and because of Christopher. So that's why we moved here. She learned to fish. We needed a place for Christopher, and that's what we found. And then we had Ty. I'm very excited about this committee. I feel like I was part of the group, several groups that were, very adamant that this needed to happen, and found advocates and several members of the Board of Selectmen to kind of push this forward. I've been listening so much to all of you, and I'm so excited about the group that we have. It's very exciting. And Kim, my mom went to Simmons for social work. So that was like 40 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. She graduated with me in her stomach at graduation.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah. So I feel very connected to a number of you for various reasons. As parents, as Simmons kids, and as so many other reasons. So I'm very, I'm excited for this group. We talked about low-hanging fruit. I just want to plug this really quickly. I know we have some organizing to do. I just had a conversation with Stephanie Burke about a civil rights commission. And several towns have already started those and organized those. And that, I think, is a very low-hanging fruit, particularly for this committee, to have a civil rights commission of some nature. And I think from even the applicants, we know that there are people out there, if we're busy, that could participate in something like that and use us for direction based on whatever our goals end up being. Also, I know that Stride has been pushing for Indigenous People Day and taking a second look at the celebration of Columbus and maybe switching that name. A number of towns have already done that. So those are the types of low-hanging fruit that I'm interested in. I know I've done plenty of due diligence. I've had immense experience with reviewing contracts and things of that nature. So that part of the work for me will be much easier than finding people with a vested interest in this town more welcoming and more acceptable, and a place where Ruth's kids, grandkids may want to grow up, and mine as well. So that's why I'm here, and I'm excited to get started. I have all kinds of ideas and ways to get this done. So let's go.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for coming forward as well. Anybody have any additional comments or questions for one another before we sort of get to the next agenda item? No? Okay.
Maura, you're going to tell us a little bit about yourself, though.
Oh, Ruth, thank you. Thanks so much.
You thought you were going to get out of that, huh?
I know, I did. I thought I'd get away with that. I moved here in Scituate about 28 years ago. Again, because, met an Irish guy in New York City, but he was from the South Shore. So moved to Boston, Charlestown, and then eventually down here for the same reason. Scituate for me was attractive because it looked like a place where I summered in Rhode Island with all the stone walls along the sea. So really it was the water, similar to Nikki's wife, it really was the water, the stone walls. And I live on the west side, so where it used to be farmland out here. Not so much anymore, but that's what attracted me to Scituate. I have 2 girls, 26 and 25. One's almost 25, should be 25 this year. And both went through the Scituate Public Schools. And actually, I got involved in town government. I like to refer to myself as a public servant. I'm not a politician. I graduated from Syracuse with a political science degree. So I think it's always public policy and public service has always been ingrained in me. And my first introduction to Scituate government was when the Jenkins Elementary School was sitting up on the hill, completely built and closed because somebody failed to advise the voters and residents in Scituate that we needed an extra $800,000 to staff it. Who would think that we needed additional teachers for an additional school? So, just some, kind of headbanging type of things that I said, okay, I think I need to get involved and help here. And it was an immediate introduction to municipal government, state government, financing. And, we worked hard to get that school open. Subsequently, I was on the school committee for 3 years. Kind of found that probably really wasn't the best place for me because I'm not as much of a policy wonk as some other folks are. My colleague Karen Canfield is a huge policy wonker, which is great. That's a strength that she brings to the board. So I, after that, I served for, I want to say 7 years on the advisory committee. So really have a good understanding of our finances. As you know, the advisory committee is appointed by the moderator and it's really the people's representative to really take a look at the finances and understand the way in which the budget is allocated. So that was great. And then ran for Board of Selectmen when Rick Murray stepped down back in 2014. And here I am. So I love working on the board. I think we have a great board, diverse board, really interested in moving the town forward, which it has been for several years. Earlier in my time here, not so much, but that's why we have a lot of things to make up for in our infrastructure. So one of my goals tonight too is just to share with you like a very high level kind of overview of how town hall is organized, very high overview of kind of the finances and how it works. I just think it might help us all, you all move forward to kind of understand how everything is organized. And then we can talk about at the end whether or not you think you're ready to elect chairs and whatnot. If not, if we want to wait till the next meeting, y'all kind of think about it a little bit, we can do that as well. So that's where I am. I love what I do. I work full time as well. So this is my night job, as many of you know, all of you as well are volunteers here, and I pretty much am myself. So, but it's very rewarding. So I'm really happy to be a part of this committee too.
What is your day job, Maura?
So I'm a regional sales director at Staples. And
that's right. You said Staples. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's okay. Staples is a very big company. I do all the logoed merchandise. I don't do office products anymore. I was in business development for many years and then moved over to managing a team. I have 8 folks between here and New York City. So I used to travel quite a bit to New York, but just not in the last 8 months. So this is a good time to kind of take on something as serious as this, because I have some good time because I'm around more than I usually am. Yeah. So, well, good. Any other questions for me? No? Okay. So I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, which is really just a brief overview. So what I'm going to do is share my screen. I put some things together for us just to take a look at. And please feel free to shout out, call out, ask a question. I may not be able to see if you have a question, and this is, no need to be shy, I guess is my point. Because I may not be able to see, let's do this one. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to minimize the video, so I'm not going to look at everybody. So please, if you have anything, just make sure you are. Actually, you know what? I will make it up so I can do it. All right. So what we have here is, I thought what I would do is sort of just do a very, high-level overview of the town and how we're organized. So we are all responsible, number one, to the voters, right? You, all the residents. Anything that is decided at annual town meeting and special town meetings, which are held in order for us. It has to be approved by voters, and that's the type. We have a town meeting format here. So you'll see that reporting to the voters are the Board of Selectmen. There's 5 of us. Two are on the same term, if you will. So 2 are elected every 3 years, then 2 are elected another every 3 years, and then there's 1 position that's elected every 3 years, and that's the slot that I take, that I sit in. So typically when I run, I'm the only one up for re-election, and then I think it's, I want to say it's Tony and Andrew are the same timing, and the 2 Karens are the same timing, coincidentally. So the town clerk, Kathy Gardner, is also an elected position. And then there's also elected boards that report up to the voters, such as the planning board, such as the Board of Assessors. So they don't report to the Board of Selectmen, they report to the voters. And I think sometimes that's a misconception that's out there, that folks think that we oversee the planning board and the Board of Assessors. We certainly work in tandem with them and work together to move things forward. The planning board obviously oversees development, zoning, if they're going to change any of those rules. So the master plan for the town, and work through making sure that Scituate, properly develops and keeps an eye on that. There's also a town moderator. So as you know, he is responsible for running our annual town meetings as well as a special town meeting. But he also appoints 2 very important committees. He appoints the advisory committee, and he also appoints the capital planning committee, 2 independent boards that oversee our capital plan, as well as the advisory board oversees the entire town budget as well. We then have our town council, and then all these folks in the red here report up to the Board of Selectmen. So we have Nancy Holt, who is our finance director. She's fabulous, and she will be very helpful in any needs. I know everybody will be very cooperative and helpful as we go out and need to gather some different information. The treasurer collector is Pam Avatable, so obviously collects our taxes. She does a lot of our bonding and managing of our debt. So they work, Nancy and Pam work collectively together. Obviously, we know town administrator Jim Boudreau. I probably should have started with him right there in the center. So Jim's been with us since, I want to say, 2018. And he's the manager of the town. So he reports up to us, but all these other folks below him in blue and even to the left and the right really report to Jim. So he manages the town, and he's accountable to us, the Board of Selectmen. So that's the chain of command, if you will. We also have the Veterans Officer, which is Don Knapp. There are a number of appointed boards and committees that roll up to the Board of Selectmen. obviously like yourself. You can see a full listing of them on the town website if you haven't been there, but there's a full range, about 30 different committees, because there's a lot of work to do, in municipal government. And I have to tell you, we couldn't do it without all the volunteers like yourself. We just couldn't do it. It's a lot of work to run a town, and very proud of the committee work that happens here, everywhere from the Commission on Disabilities to the Coastal Advisory Committee to the Council on Aging. I mean, you name it, recreation, right? Everybody gets a lot of work done, and it's all volunteer. So it's really quite admirable. Let's see what's over here. One sec. I'm going to minimize this so I can see. Okay, that was capital plan. So then we have public safety, which of course includes fire and police. We got Chief Thompson, who's our new chief of police. And we have Chief Murphy, who is our chief of the fire department. We also have down on the harbor, Steve Moan, who is our harbor master. And then in public safety, we also kind of lump in inspections, right? Which is the ZBA, and Bob Vogel is our point of contact for zoning and all things building, if you will. And then finance, just kind of to segment it like that.
Or how long has Chief Thompson?
Chief Thompson, we just appointed, I want to say, in June. And we also have our first female deputy chief. So Deputy Chief, oh God, she's going to kill me. Amanda, jump in on me because I'm drawing a blank. Allison. She's going to kill me for that. So, and Allison is our first female deputy chief as well. So Chief Stewart retired at the close of the last fiscal year. So Chief Thompson is recently appointed. He's doing a great job. Very happy with him.
But more, he's been with the department for the last 18 years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Thank you for adding that, Mandy. Thank you very much. Most of the folks within the Scituate Police Department have really grown through the system. They've done a nice job training and grooming folks to continue to be promoted and excel within the department, which is nice. So under finance, again, so we have the assessor's office. They do all the taxes and the valuations of the property. Human resources, we've got Bob. We all met Bob. And then the treasurer collector, already went over that with Pam's office. Director of Public Works is Kevin Cafferty, and beneath him, he's got an engineering team. He's got the highway and public grounds. He's at the sewer department, transfer station, and the water department. So they all roll up to Kevin. And I think Kevin should probably be a point of contact and filter anything down as we go forth and want to obtain any information. Facilities is Kevin Kelly. So he is responsible for maintaining all of our facilities, and even the school folks roll up to Kevin so that we can leverage some of our contracts and facility maintenance across the town. Under Health and Human Services, we've got our Council on Aging, which is Linda Hayes. We have our Board of Health, which is Drew Scheel, who obviously is immensely busy right now, and he and his staff are doing a terrific job. And then Veterans also kind of gets lumped under the Health and Human Services as well. And Don Knapp is our Veterans Officer. Under the Planning Department, Karen Joseph is the Director of Planning, and she works in tandem, very much so with the Planning Board. So she's the point of contact, from the town side for that Planning Board, just as Jim Boudreau is for us and the Board of Selectmen. And also kind of collectively there is the Conservation Commissioner, which is Amy Waukee. And then we also added a relatively new position, I want to say back again, probably in 2012, 2013, a Coastal Resource Officer. And Kyle Boyd is our new resource officer there. He's been here for a couple years now, but definitely, coastal issues are very important to Scituate, a lot of challenges there. So we really needed to, a lot of work for getting grants and things like that. So it's been very instrumental in getting a lot of help in how to fortify our coast. And then from a cultural and recreation aspect, we've got the library. Jesse Finney is our director of the library. And head of the recreation is Maura Glancy. And then our own Seth Pfeiffer is in charge of Scituate Cable. He also has a committee, a cable commission that he works with.
Maura, where does the
questions?
Historical Society fall? Where does the Historical Society fall?
The
Is that
historical,
in
the
the
historical,
town,
well, the historical society or commission. So the commission is a committee. So it's a committee. So it would fall up into the boards and committees. And then the society is its own independent society, Nikki. It's not a town board, if you will, but we certainly cooperate with them and help them out with things. Anyone, any other questions?
The town charter,
Yeah.
who is dealing with that directly? Is it a group of
So-
people from all over, or?
Yeah, so there's a new town charter review committee that Karen Canfield heads up. I want to say there's 4 or 5 folks, just like you, volunteers that came forward to interview for it. So they meet a couple times a month, and they're going through it law by law, if you will, and they'll be reporting to the board. I'm not sure if they're going to be, I'm not sure the timing where they are with their evaluation, Nikki, but there is a charter review committee that is in place today. Any other questions yet? Or Bob, anything you want to add, knowing the organization?
No, I mean, the only other position that really is not listed here, it's currently vacant, but we actually also have a director of planning and development. And so that position is sort of a senior level position in the planning department, conservation, coastal resources, and the building department of inspection, ZBA, all will ultimately report to that individual. So it's a position that's vacant, we're recruiting for currently. So just in terms of sort of the org chart, that's one other sort of component that that's not really sort of reflected here, but that's another position that exists.
Yep. No, good call out. Good call out. So if anybody knows of any good applicants, send them Bob's way. It's been open for a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's an important position to bring all those different components together so we're all marching the same way.
Right.
I'm sorry I was late, Maura, but did you go over kind of the budget approval process where it
Nope,
starts?
that's my next slide.
Okay.
That's my next slide, if you will, that we're in the midst of that. Any other comments or questions? Bob, do we have any other positions that are open?
No, not significant positions that to speak of, but yeah, no, we need crossing guards. So if crossing guards, let's send them our way. But no.
That must be hard to fill right now, just because of the remoteness. You know, the on off.
It is. No, it's one of the tougher positions to fill. So yeah.
Yeah, they are. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to page down. Maybe I have to be here. All right. So I'm going to, can everybody do that advance for everyone?
Yep.
Okay. So just really high level again, I'm not going to get into really deep. If we want to put on a more deep dive overview, you know, we can invite Nancy in and she can do her due diligence, because nobody can speak better about our finances than Nancy Holt. So basically, you know, how do we pay for all the services that we provide to our constituents? Property taxes is a huge burden, right? 96% of our revenues come from property taxes and only 4% for commercial. And that needle has not moved in the 20 years that I've been in government and looking at our budgets. We also receive state funds. We also, with my nice typo there, receive funds through permits and fees, with transfer station, moorings fees, as well as permits, you know, building permits, dog licenses, whatnot, excise taxes for motor vehicles, things like that. Those are all fees that we take in order to operate, and then obviously grants as well. So I slice and dice the financial forecast a little bit to just just to pare it down, but any of these documents, as well as our budget, are available for us. So as we move forward and kind of determine, what we want to look at, we certainly can provide a full budget book for some folks to have, not a problem. So when you look at this, sorry, I'm just going to reduce my screen so I can see it. So what I've done is really just try to show you, okay, what was our budget for fiscal year 2021? Where were we projecting it to be? And then the column over to the right is really what is our proposed budget as a town. And to the left, this is all just the operating budget. So these are dollars that we take in and manage just for your normal operations, right? So we take, the prior year and what we spent there, and we are by law allowed to add 2.5% because of Proposition 2.5 that was passed in the late 80s. So we automatically can collect an additional 2.5% in taxes and fees. And then new growth is a number that relates to new building growth, if you will, and dollars that we take in from those types of construction and new building within the town. And that first number, that $62 million, if you will, just to round it up, is really the total tax levy that we bring in to support our operations. And then the next set of numbers are those numbers that we get from different avenues. So for instance, the cherry sheet is what we get from state aid. So you can see we get about a little bit more than $7 million a year from the state. And a lot of the board's responsibility, and Nancy's really, we look to Nancy and Jim for their guidance here, is, to estimate, right, what is that state aid going to look like? We're trying to plan for a 10% reduction, although, we're hearing that it's going to be level funded. So we are a very conservatively financially run town. We don't over project revenues because we don't want to get ourselves in a situation, right? And we are required by law to pass a balanced budget as well. Local receipts, those are the $5.4 million there on that line. Those dollars are taken in. Again, that's the line for permits and different fees that come in. Enterprise indirect costs are, some funds that may come in through our enterprise accounts, which I'll talk to you about over here on the right. And then the meals tax, you can see, is pretty small, that comes in annually at $115,000. So the total revenue that, we have to work with from an operating standpoint is approximately around $76 million. And we're projecting for fiscal year 22, which is the budget season that we're in right now, to be more $79 million. And then what we do is we take out shared costs, and shared costs are, the pension, the health insurance, the workman's compensation. And shared costs means what are those costs between the schools and the town side? And we peel that off. And then we say, okay, the net available to operate between the towns and the schools is, $58.8 million. You see over to the right in fiscal year 2022, $60 million. And then we split off 66.6% of the budget, because that's been an agreement for years in the way in which the town has been run. And that goes over to the schools. And the town share is more around 33%. Which is more around, a $20 million budget. So you can see that the schools do get the lion's share of the budget. They also have what is called a bottom line budget. So when town meeting approves that final number for the schools, they can take that $40 million and spend it any way they want to and never come back to the voters to ask to move a budget allocation. Whereas municipal finance for the town, for that $20 million, if you will, we can't move a penny without coming back to the town and adjusting it. And those are the adjustments that you see during a special town meeting or the special town meeting in front of an annual town meeting, where we have to ask the voters to make budget transfers to balance out different costs that may occur throughout the year. Any questions? High level? No? I can't see if anybody, oh, okay. I'm just going to take that as a no, just because I can't see the whole panel right now. And then over to the right are enterprise funds. So these enterprise funds are separate accounts that are set up to run these particular entities: our water system, our sewer system, our transfer station, Widows Walk, and waterways. So basically, these need to be self-sustaining, if you will. So the revenue that we take in from our water rates or our sewer rates or our transfer station stickers and fees there, playing at Widows Walk, it has to net out to zero. If we by chance bring in more, it goes into what we call retained earnings, which stays again within that same enterprise fund, if you will, and is typically used to reinvest back into that particular fund. So if we had any retained earnings in our water department, we would leverage that to borrow, to continue to make improvements, for our water system. So that's a very, very high level, not much detail, but hopefully gives you a little bit of a glimpse as to the dollars that we work with, and how the town operates, fiscally. As you know, everything has to be approved annually at the annual town meeting. Our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th. Just some basics that I'm just sharing with those of you that may not be really, familiar with municipal government. Any questions? Comments? Surprises? Not surprised?
No.
No? Okay. And I can provide you too, I just didn't put it on this screen, a breakdown of what percentage of the budget goes to each area. So that's easy to obtain too. So you can get a glimpse. It doesn't really shift too much. It's pretty steady. Let me read off some of it for you. Just going to read some of it off for you. If I can find it quick enough. I don't want to delay you and make this meeting go on forever. I can cover it the next meeting if you want, but if that's something that people are interested in, to see the percentage of the budget that goes to the different areas.
And Maura, would all this be available online somewhere also? Because I know in the old days we got the little book.
Yeah,
I'm assuming all this would be online.
It actually is the annual town report. So you can get it historically. All the annual town reports have, that's published every year. I think we're just finishing up and publishing the 2020 book. I'm trying to, we're always a year ahead, if you will. The fiscal year 2020. So that should be getting published fairly soon. So you'll always have that from a historical aspect at your fingertips. I don't think this budget book is online, but we certainly can get folks whatever they want from it. It's a pretty thick document. So you can see it. And the team does a great job going through each department. Pretty much this year, every department is pretty much level funded, if you will. So no increase other than those to accommodate contractual personnel increases, if you will, and wage increases. Those obviously we want to make sure we're taking care of our folks first. So pretty level funded this year over last year. I'll double check and see if the live budget is out there. I don't think it is, but I'll double check. But historically, it is, Ruth. But I'll double check and see if that's out there. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. The next thing that I thought I would review with everybody is just, I know you all took your open meeting law and your ethics test because you couldn't be here unless you did that. But just some things, some commentary that we got early on when we were talking about this was, hey, we just want to meet in a room and hash this out. And I'm like, yeah, well, you can't, because we're a public entity and we have to be open and transparent. and we have to promote as much openness as possible. So that's why we're here on Zoom. It's a public meeting. We need to be available and open to the public at all times. So just some little quick, easy do's and don'ts, right? So things that are in violation of open meeting law, replying to all in an email. So if an email goes out from the group, like, hey, here's a great article that you want to read, do not reply to all. You can say thank you. You can call your friend up or call your colleague up and talk about it, but you can't reply to all because that's considered having a discussion about a particular topic. So don't do that. You also cannot reply to all on a text message. All right. So that is also falls under open meeting law these days. So if you decide to go texting the group, again, can't reply to all with regards to opining on anything, if you will. So send a note to a single member of committee, not a problem. Feel free to exchange any information, ask questions, not a problem at all. We can create subcommittees within this advisory committee. So as we talk through moving forward, what our goals are, what are those strategic goals? What are those tactical goals? What is that low-hanging fruit that we want to talk about at our next meeting? If you feel that you need more doers, right? You have the right as a committee to vote and approve a subcommittee, if you will, to a working committee. They're typically called working committees that can do work on the side for you and report back to you as well. So that also is allowed. We do need to maintain records of the meetings and through minutes. So we will need a secretary. And we must have a quorum of the body to vote on anything. So a quorum of our body really would probably be just those who are voting. So I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we would need at least 4 of 5, because you can't have an even number. We would need at least 5 of the at-large members present in order to vote on anything. Does that make sense? Okay. So I wanted to also I thought I would just include, the definition of deliberation, which is any oral or written communication through any medium, including electronic mail, between or among a quorum of the public body on any public business within its jurisdiction. So I know you all went through this training, but I just thought it may make sense because it's always some rookie mistakes when we hit reply to all, and we want to make sure. I want to help make sure we're doing everything within these parameters as much as possible. If you ever have any questions, I just included, and I'll send this deck out to you guys. All this information is on the Attorney General site. She's the one that monitors all of this, her office. All of our minutes must be posted and available for public viewing. So typically, the process is, hopefully we'll take some minutes. They'll be reviewed at the next meeting. We'll make any recommendations and improvements, things that might be wrong. We'll approve them. Once they're approved for viewing, we will have them posted on the town website for all to view. And all meeting agendas must be posted at a minimum of 48 business hours prior to a meeting. So if we want to meet on a Tuesday, we really need to get it out by Thursday night, Friday morning latest, because obviously the weekend doesn't count for that. Any questions?
Yes, Maura, just so I understand, it's really the deliberation, right? So like you emailed all of us to set up this meeting, one of us could share, like you said, an article or a case study or anything we think may be helpful. We just can't discuss it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Correct. And if it's something that you want to put on the next agenda, whoever the chair is, whoever you all elect as the chair will be responsible for setting the agenda, for managing it, and then also following up to make sure that whoever we vote on being the secretary, has the minutes, has those documented, and really will be responsible for, next steps in moving this forward. Any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, not to belabor the point, but I mean, I kind of like live my life through email, so this is going to take some getting used to. But
Yeah.
So, like I think Celia just mentioned, so we can send thoughts and so forth, or a document, or Nikki might send out something about Civil Rights Commission that such and such a town, and we just go ahead and read it, consume it, what have you, and that's it.
Correct.
No long email threads debating things, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct. Right. Because that's considered deliberating and discussing it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And no
just-
email to say like, thanks, got it, or anything like that.
Oh,
Just
you can do that. That's not a problem.
okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You can say thank you so much.
Wondering where the line was.
Yeah. No. You just, to Tom's point, we just can't deliberate. You can't even say, oh, that was a great article. It's, thank you very much. Look forward to talking about it, whatever, or that's about as much as you can say. Yeah. And Tom, really, you're not belaboring at all. That's why I wanted to cover this at a very high level, because it hopefully it gives you some, sometimes it feels like it straps you, especially in our world of being virtual and remote. And this is the only way we can really communicate right now. So it is a little bit tougher because we don't have that opportunity to meet in person yet. But I think it's important too, right? There could be a lot of decision making taking place if it wasn't monitored. And we certainly don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that, the entire committee and everything that we're doing moving forward is transparent, and that decisions are made openly and according to the law too.
So let me ask a follow-up question. So if someone sends out a document and it's clearly worth discussing with either the entire committee or a subset of the committee, can I then go and set up a Zoom meeting to discuss that?
No. So, well, you can.
I thought that was the answer. But.
Well, so let me take that back. You can set up a Zoom meeting like with two people of like a working committee. But what I would suggest is that the chair put it on the next agenda, like that you go back to whoever the chair is and say, blah, 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 whoever it is. This, I feel that this is worth discussing. Can we have it on the next agenda? Now, you certainly can call anybody you want and discuss it and get some thoughts and have some dialogue. There's nothing that prohibits you from doing that at all. Having a separate Zoom meeting, I think I want to check on that, to be honest with you, because I'm not sure with working committees. I think you are allowed to, Tom, but, I'm going to just double check on that because I just want to make sure. So I think there are some additional folks that are interested in helping out. So let me clarify that for you. And you think I would know that after, 20 years.
No, I've just found myself from a work standpoint, I don't really call anybody on their cell phones anymore that I work with. We use Teams, which is the same as Zoom, but
me too.
We're on video all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that's the case, I don't think that's a problem, right? If you're going to do it that way and just have a discussion with, one or two other people, but it can't be, it can't be more than what that quorum is. So, for instance, you can't have a discussion with 4 or 5 people, right? Because
4 or 5 people from this committee.
Right.
Okay. Or 4 or 5 elected. For instance, you're on the committee for the board as the Board of Selectmen representative, but we can't have a conversation with 4 people from this committee and Karen. Right? Because then that's 5.
Well, that's 5 because that's me too. Because even though I'm not voting, I wouldn't do that. But you could so to take that scenario, Nikki, you could. So say you wanted to have somebody from the planning board and yourself and somebody from public safety. You can do that on your own because that is not considered like the same board, if you will. So if you want to pull, a side meeting together with, say it's 2 members from the DEI committee, right? So say it's 2 members from the DEI committee and you want to meet with a public safety person, you don't have to post that and go through the entire agenda setting. You can do that as a one-off. So you're right, Nikki, it's within the confines of our committee that you can't deliberate more than what the quorum is. Does that make sense, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I know. It gets confusing and complicated sometimes. But definitely with the Zoom meetings, you definitely can do that because that is your mode of calls, like you said now, in a situation like that I just described.
Okay.
What else? Ask away, because honestly, it's as you can see, it's confusing and can be complicated.
Or will you be distributing a list of the committee members and our contact information? Will that?
I can do that if everybody is so inclined to share. I have email addresses for everybody. I don't have phone numbers. So if people are comfortable with sharing phone numbers, why don't you send me that email and I'll collect it and I'll put it together in one file and send it out to everybody.
I think Nikki got knocked out. You may need to admit her.
Oh, she did? Oh, hold on.
I took the liberties of letting her back in. I think we're all
thank
co-hosts,
you.
so I hope that's okay.
No, thank you. Nope, that's great. I can stop sharing so I can see the entire thing now. So Nikki's coming back in. Okay. What other questions about it? And if you do have anything, please, don't be shy to ask, because like I said, it is complicated.
So just to wrap it up, I just want to make sure I understand this. So let's say I can send out an email and say, hey, let's meet with the facilities director to review, like upcoming contracts. If you want to review that, let me know if you want to join. And then Tom says, great, I'll do that meeting with you. And he just replies to just me. And then Tom and I go meet with that person. And then we come back and I email the full group again and say, this is what Tom and I learned. We can discuss it at the next meeting. That's fine.
Yeah, I would probably be say, this is what Tom and I learned, and the chair will be adding it to the agenda. And then at that point can share any of those documents once that agenda is posted. So those backup documents are included.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sorry, I lost connection when you were explaining. Thanks.
Oh, we were still on the same topic, Nikki. So you didn't miss too much, just more of, sort of re-clarifying what you had already brought up about working with different committee members, if you will, from other committees outside of ours. We really just talked a little bit more about that.
Sorry about that.
No, gosh, no worries.
So it's really just that we can't make decisions outside of the group, like outside of this visible forum. We need, right?
Right. You need to do it at a posted meeting with it, clearly identified on the agenda that it's going to be discussed and reviewed and voted on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So next on the agenda, 1 minute, I went to a full screen by mistake. Okay, so we'll wrap this up. Let's see. So, open discussion. Are any of you ready or willing, or do you want to think about it until our next meeting? You can call one another up, see who's willing to take a role. We do need to identify a chairperson, a vice chairperson, and a secretary to get started and to start to get to work. But if all of you want to think about it, it's hard, right? Because you don't really have that opportunity to sit in the same room with one another. But if you feel that you have an idea, there are a couple ways in which you can handle it. We can just talk about it, who might be interested. Or someone can say, I make a motion to appoint XYZ as the chair. And if there's a second, then we'll have a discussion, see if that person is willing to do it. So there are a number of different avenues that we can address this. So first I will ask, do you want to talk about it tonight, or do you want to think about it and put it at the top of our agenda at the next meeting?
Can I ask a question, Maura?
Sure, Ruth.
Can you kind of delineate a little better for us? I mean, you talked a little bit about the chairperson's duties. So it's again to set agenda, to make sure that the secretary's notes are out and available. Obviously, to run this meeting, to set it up, the electronic Zoom part of it. Again, I would assume that means they need the technical expertise to do that. So what other qualifications do you need for the chairperson?
You probably want someone that has time, right? That has the time to organize and bring things together, because the chair would also set the agenda. So as we move forward with different tasks and things that we're doing, that chair will obviously get that feedback from folks and decide, okay, we're going to discuss and talk about how we're going to move forward. What are we going to attack first? Who's going to attack it? And really manage the whole process. And I obviously will stay here too, and Bob, we're all here to help, but really it's running the meetings, managing. When we say manage the agenda, it's also kind of deciding what goes on the agenda for that particular meeting as well. Does that help?
I'll do it. If anyone else wants to do it, or can we have co-chairs, or you have to have a chair, a vice chair?
Oh, you can have co-chairs if you like. I do recommend you either do a co-chair or a vice chair, because you just want to make sure that you have that backup, because we are volunteers and you're going to want to, be able to pass off those responsibilities at certain times, I'm sure.
Well, I'm willing to volunteer for one of those.
So Nikki is self-nominating herself. Which is great. It's certainly fine, and it's terrific.
Can I second, Nikki?
You can.
Thanks, Angela.
We probably will need a motion.
How that works, because I was going to say the same thing. I'll second Nikki.
Yeah. So why don't I ask this first? So since Nikki volunteered, I'll say, do I have a motion to appoint Nikki Sanders as the chairperson for the DEI committee?
Yes.
So Tom said yes, a motion, and I need a second.
Second.
Who did that?
Kim.
Kim? Okay, thanks, Kim. Sorry, I'm writing. And then all in favor, I just need you all to take, I'll have to do a roll vote, I think, because we're all remote. So
Do I not vote because it's about me or something I
No,
brought
you can
up?
vote for yourself. No,
Okay.
Why not? You can vote for yourself. So, Angela?
Yes.
Ruth?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Kelly?
Kim.
I mean, Kim.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Sorry, Kim. Celia?
Yes.
Natasha?
Yes.
Right. And then Nikki. You vote
She's
for
deliberating.
I suspect you're
My
a yes.
connection isn't great, so if you call my name, you might have to do it more than once. I don't know
Okay.
why.
That's all right. Do you just say yes, because you're voting for yourself to be chairperson?
Yes, yes.
All right, so that's unanimous. We have a chairperson. Perfect. Thank you, Nikki. Does anybody want to be a vice or a co and support Nikki in this endeavor?
I would raise my hand for something. I don't know if it's vice chair or secretary. I'm a good note taker.
Okay.
Can you hear me? I nominate Tom to be the vice chair.
Okay, I have a motion for Tom to be the vice chair.
I second that.
Okay, Angela seconds that. Let's do a discussion. Tom, is that something that you would be up for?
Yeah.
I thought-
Yeah, I have time, and my wife wants to keep me busy anyway, so I think it'll work.
She wants you out of the house, COVID out of the house.
Yeah.
All right, so Nikki made a motion and Angela seconded that. And I'm sorry, I'm note taking so I can do some semblance of minutes for this meeting. I'll do a roll call vote. All in favor. Angela?
Yes.
Yes. Natasha?
Yes.
I guess Tom, we let Nikki vote for herself, so.
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
Celia,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and Nikki. Nikki?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If you can hear me.
And now, all right, so great. We have a chair and a co-chair. Thank you. Now, who would like to, now secretary really, the secretary role is obviously taking meeting minutes, writing them up, making sure that they're reviewed at the next meeting, also responsible for posting them. And the chair and the secretary can decide who posts the agendas and make sure that the agendas get posted. I would just make sure that that one person decides to do it, so it doesn't get the, I thought she was posting it situation, or he. So is there anyone that would be interested in being the recording secretary for this committee?
Angela, are you into it? Or Ruth, you spoke up.
Ruth. She was an English teacher.
I was going to say, how detailed are these minutes? Because I cannot do he said, she said.
Ruth, it's just as detailed as you want to make them. It doesn't mean that you have to be sitting there typing the entire time, but you certainly want to make sure that, the most important thing is to record the votes, right? To record initiative votes, and, some detail of what was discussed, if there are opposing views and things, you want to make sure that there's some high level review, but not to the detail that you'll be sitting there typing the entire time. We want to make sure that you're an active member. And
that's it, because I can only do like one thing at a time sometimes. That multitasking, like I'm typing away, I don't know. And again, I just feel that people then, I would have no problems of people reviewing. I would submit minutes, and then people's comments and or corrections would be appreciated.
Yep. And then typically you make those corrections and then submit those as corrected to be posted online and to be recorded.
Okay. And then I'll check in with you on how to do that.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely here to help with all that sort of.
So I'd agree to
all those mechanics. So it sounds like Ruth is open to doing that. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Ruth?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Ruth.
I'd like to second it.
Who seconded it?
Natasha.
Thank you. Okay, there's a motion and a second to elect Ruth as secretary. Angela? Yes. So all in favor? Angela? Yep. Natasha?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Ruth?
Yes.
Celia?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
And Nikki?
Yes.
Okay.
The delay is like
Here we go.
Terrible. My connection's awful tonight. I don't know why, but it is.
That's okay. It's like we said before, it's Comcast, right? It's tough. It's tough. Well, thank you. I think that's a lot of progress tonight. I thought you might want to wait a week to decide that, but I think that's great. Yeah,
I think this is really good. So the next meeting would be 2 weeks from today. Is that right?
Yep. So if that works for everybody, you can discuss that. And if you want to keep that, I thought Tuesday nights would work well because it's opposite of Board of Selectmen nights. Bob and Lucia and I don't know, Mandy, you probably work all sorts of different schedules, not just Tuesday nights. So as you know, Town Hall is open till 7:30. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier for the town folks to stay late. But just let us know. I know Bob and Lucy are also flexible. So will that work for everybody, the every other Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you can decide too, if you think you want to meet every other Tuesday, is it once a month? What is that cadence that you're looking for?
I think, I'm going to say, I think every other week sounds good. At 6:30, is that okay for everyone?
Yeah.
And is there usually a cap on the time, Maura, for these meetings, or?
No, but you can, and if you want to, if that helps, certainly the agendas will, I think working committees are going to be best because you want to be able to go out and do some exploration and come back and determine next steps, and really will be about discussing on how to move forward. So there usually aren't, but 2 hours is a lot, guys. That's long. So I wouldn't recommend going any longer than that. If you can try to keep them an hour and a half and get your marching orders, but it's also an important topic. So I think it's just going to be dependent upon, how you can move along and come to, a consensus to get to a vote and move things along. So some meetings are late, some meetings aren't. So it's hard. It'll be hard to predict, based upon what the topic is. And if you think that you have a topic that's going to take a longer time to discuss, feel free, Nikki, to throw it out to the committee do you want to start earlier? We have a lot to discuss tonight. Are people available at 6? As long as you post it, it's fine. As long as you make that determination in time to post that agenda, that's fine.
And just one last question. I know we're wrapping up. How do we communicate with the Board of Selectmen? For instance, I know you're our Board of Selectmen representative, but if we have a recommendation before the 12 months is up, do we send a letter that we give to you to read? Do we? So
I think we would bring you before the board to report. And I think you missed in the beginning, Nikki, we do want to hear like a quarterly touch base. So progress. So we would probably expect, January, February, March. So at the end of the March, maybe is the first time, I would probably say right after town meeting, because annual town meeting is on April 12th. So it might make sense to kind of use that as a target date for your first report back to the board, which can include, your strategy, your action items, right? And what you're looking to achieve and what the committee itself has determined what to prioritize. And then move from there.
Awesome.
And as we
so I would just
sorry, finish up, Nikki.
Oh, I would just suggest that all the voting members send, maybe based on the org chart that we saw today, departments that you're most interested or would be willing to take a look at for the committee and report back. So for instance, Ruth has been a major part of the school system, so maybe she wants to have conversations with people in that area. And Tom is kind of in business, so maybe he wants to talk to finance folks. Like maybe take a look at the org chart or think about it in terms of where you think you might be most useful, kind of, working with people or analyzing people in those areas.
And Maura, you said you would send out the deck so that we'll have that. Okay.
I'll send it out after this,
Great.
After tonight. Once we close down, I'll send it out to you. So you can take a look at that.
And I'd be interested in Bob's, kind of input as far as what he would consider to prioritize from his side of what he thinks needs to be dealt with first. And just also the other members. I mean, what are priorities that you have? I've talked to a lot of different people who have a lot of different ideas, and they're ideas from all over the place. And so for people to start maybe putting things together, making lists, because just going through one by one may not be as fruitful for us, rather than to say, okay, let's hit this one first. And maybe we can hit these 3 things by different subcommittees. And then, divvy out the people that way. Because I think there's just a lot to deal with. And prioritizing may give us a little bang for our buck. And I agree with Nikki, some of the talking about low-hanging fruit, but we have to also evaluate what resources, et cetera, does each one of those mean. So we have a lot to discuss. So if people can think of priorities, things that they think would be the most important to start with for next time. And then for agenda, Nikki, Mary Maura, how does that start? Does Nikki start something and we add to it? How does that all go?
So I think, yeah, so I think listening, I think you want to bring up topics at the close of each meeting, just as you are, right? And saying, okay, I really, next meeting would like to focus on talking about what our priorities are. And then any other additional ideas that any of you want to cover, also, get that to Nikki, and then Nikki can organize it. And also she can reach out to all of you. You can all think about this over the next week or two, just as you said, what are those priorities? How do you want to attack this? And feel free to give Nikki that information back so she can filter it. Again, you just don't want to do reply to all, but you certainly can send your priorities and how you think this should shake out to her, so she can collect all that and determine, what makes sense to discuss first, right? And then manage it moving forward like that. And I'm available if anybody has any questions. Does that answer your question, Ruth?
Yeah, then does she send out a draft agenda for us to see and add something onto it?
Sure, absolutely can do that. Yeah. So just when she sends you out that draft agenda, just make sure when you reply back to her with your comments that you're just replying to Nikki and not to the whole group.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to say that I think, and I don't know, Bob, what your thoughts are here, is do you, as a group, kind of decide, are we going to tackle it from a department aspect, right? So I call it kind of, horizontally by department, or is it vertically by, we want to look at your procurement practices, we want to look at training, we want to look at, the policies, how do we, whatever those other segments are. We want to look at hiring practices. I mean, really, hiring practices are probably pretty standard with just you, right, Bob, across most. But then you might want to look at public safety, right, town hall, whatever. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, again, I do think ultimately we need to sort of decide what are our priorities and what are the things that we really need to focus on. But I mean, each one of those becomes so complicated. Even hiring practices is a good example where it's so specific that the differences between how we hire at police and fire because of civil service versus how we hire, for a higher level position versus an entry level position. So again, my initial reaction was, yeah, that potentially just a sort of an HR function, but the more the more you think about it, it's really much broader than that. So. It just, the thing is, and I think we've said it's sort of so all-encompassing. There's so many aspects of this that we really need to kind of get a handle on. And I know for me, anyways, it's the when we talk about low-hanging fruit, I think it's policy development and it's training, and the two things that I think we really need to kind of, from my perspective, I want to see sort of tackled as quickly as possible. But the more you discuss this, I think the more things that it's just gonna layer upon layer. And I think there's so many different ways that we can go. So how we do it, I'm not sure until I think I have a better sense of like what we determine are those priorities, and in the involvement of other departments and how much it happens within this group, how much it becomes sort of subcommittee work that we have to involve other teams or departments. It really, is determined in large part about by what we ultimately determine those priorities are. And I'm just not sure what they are yet, to be honest with you.
Well, I think that was a really good call out, Nikki, to have everyone think about what their priorities are. Or Ruth, I don't know, David, you, Ruth, I said that. You probably both said it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about an agenda as everyone's talking now, so I will put something preliminarily together and kind of send it out. And just collect feedback from that. And then I would send it to Ruth to post it. Is that right? Once we kind of have a solid agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ruth would place it the Thursday or the Friday morning on the town website, right? Is that the process? So
basically what she'll do is she'll send, and Ruth, you can she'll basically send it to Kathy Gardner, who's our town clerk, and then also either Michelle or Lorraine. I'll get one of them to post it on our website for us. So I don't think we're at the point where we are going to have our own webpage yet. That maybe that's down the road. So it would just be a general posting on the main page. So I know Michelle or Lorraine would be happy to do that for us.
Awesome.
The other thing I think, Bob, might make sense is to have a, whether it's a 15 or 30 or 20-minute overview of what civil service means.
Sure.
Because that is a unique situation that we're bound to for hiring right now. And I don't know who would do that, if that's you or or Mandy or whoever is best to do that, to explain that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm happy at some point if people want to hear that process. Because like Bob said, it does, we're bound by civil service.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I had. I think this has been really productive. I hope you did too. And even though, make sure Mandy and Lucia and Bob and I, obviously send us all the information too, whatever you guys are sharing. Even though we're not voting members, we still want to be a part of the conversation and add in and assist wherever we can. So, make sure you include us too with any of those, any documents or things that you find that you want to share. So our next meeting date is, I'm going to look at my calendar here. Does anybody have that next one up? I know.
January 26th.
Would it be the 26th?
Yep.
Okay.
26th.
And I will, basically, we're going to keep this as same Zoom. I'll make sure this format gets to you, Ruth, so you can just use the same format at the top. You don't need to adjust that at all. It's always going to be the same link.
Great.
Something that you all may want to discuss is whether or not you want this to stream live on Facebook. And, we can keep that verbiage in there. If not, we can take the verbiage out if you don't want to do that, but we'll just let Seth know because he can always activate that. He's giving us a thumbs up. So the 26th, and I will put together meeting minutes for all to review for that meeting, since I've taken a few notes and I know nobody else has. And I can also look at the recording to put together. That's always a good tip too, Ruth. You can always look back at the recording to see if there's some, important information that you want to add in. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a good thing about Zoom.
Yeah.
Anything. If there's nothing else that anybody wants to discuss, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
And Tom seconded. So again, thank you everyone, and have a great week and a better weekend, and so excited and really look forward to the upcoming months with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Maura.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Everyone.